Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive. You sent us this really fascinating piece, Live with Intentionality.
hmm By Caroline D. Bauer and Lynne Ellis.
Right, and it just immediately clicked.
Huh.
We think so much about being intentional with careers, family, even like fitness goals.
Yeah, we plan those things out.
Exactly. And what these authors are suggesting is, well, why not bring that same deliberate approach to our spiritual lives and how we engage with the world?
That's really the heart of it.
Yeah.
Bauer and Ellis point out, look, we're consciously planning and acting with purpose in so many parts of life: work, family time, tech use.
Sure.
Their big idea is, isn't it about time we applied that same kind of, intentionality to our relationship with God and our part in his mission?
And they cut right to a fundamental question. It's not just what needs to happen to finish what Christ left for us in this like super connected world.
Right.
They ask, who will it take? Which kind of shifts the focus onto each of us, doesn't it? Individually and, well, together.
It really does.
Yeah.
And understanding where they're coming from helps. Caroline Bauer, she's got, what, over 40 years of ministry?
Yeah, all over the world. Pioneering, mobilizing, training,
Yeah.
mentoring leaders. A lot of depth there.
Definitely. And Lynne Ellis, she brings over 2 decades from the local church side, really focusing on getting people and churches involved with marginalized groups globally.
Missions pastor, trainer, life coach, connecting profession and passion. You can see how their backgrounds blend.
Absolutely. So they're grounded in, actual experience, boots on the ground stuff.
And what grabbed me straight away is that this isn't about like some old school picture of missions you might have in your head.
No, not at all.
This deep dive is really exploring how you, listening right now, can leverage the stuff you already have, your skills, your experiences, your connections, right where you are.
hmm So let's maybe unpack the context they set up first, this shift they talk about in the global landscape.
Yeah, good idea. Because that's changing how we can even be involved in mission today.
It's really interesting. Bauer and Ellis highlight the growing challenges for, let's say, traditional missionary roles.
Like what call the challenges?
Well, think about visa restrictions, getting access to certain places or, key leaders. It's just not as straightforward sometimes.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
But, and this is the flip side, they immediately point to the incredible opportunities that this same globalized world presents.
Right. And this is where it gets practical for a lot of listeners, I think. They emphasize that ordinary believers, people with job skills, engineers, teachers, business folks, they often find they can get access, they can build real relationships in places where maybe a traditional missionary might face more barriers.
Exactly. Your job, your profession, it becomes this kind of unexpected but really powerful bridge.
It connects back to that idea. Your work isn't just about the paycheck.
Not at all. It can be a strategic platform, a way to build genuine connections, have conversations that can lead to something really significant, something lasting.
And, like they point out, the solutions don't always mean packing up your whole life and moving forever.
Right. Sometimes huge contributions can come from your home base or maybe through, focused short-term trips. It's more flexible.
And here's something that really stood out to me. Bauer and Ellis observed that in many places, people might be a bit wary of someone coming in with an explicit missionary label,
That can happen.
but they're often much more open, more receptive to people who are there because of their profession or a specific skill they're offering. It's a non-traditional background.
Which really leads to this huge strategic question they pose. How do we get the whole church involved from everywhere?
Yeah. They really hammer this point home. Every single believer, every church, every demographic, background, profession, doesn't matter. Everyone has a unique part to play.
It's this vision of a truly global, really diverse movement. And it's not just one way to contribute.
No, they lay out different paths. You've got people who go long-term, sure, but also short-term trips.
And people supporting from home, working remotely almost.
Or going in and out as needed. It's about finding your role, tailored to your life, your contribution.
Which brings us right back to that central theme, this call to intentionality.
Yes. This is the absolute core of their argument, isn't it?
It really is. They're pushing us to live intentionally, not just in, our jobs or hobbies, but smack dab in the middle of our spiritual lives and how we engage with God's mission.
It's about consciously weaving your faith into everything, recognizing that God actually has a purpose for all of it.
And the really freeing part, I think, is that they make it so clear. You
Oh.
don't need some fancy missions degree.
Right. No special qualifications required in that sense.
What you do need is this, like growing awareness, like a sensitivity maybe, to the fact that the gifts you already have,
Your passion.
yeah, the things that make you tick, the relationships you're already in, these are powerful tools God can use for his purposes globally.
And this isn't just, a nice idea they cooked up. The source material is packed with real stories, actual examples of this intentionality in action.
Oh, absolutely. And the variety is just incredible. It shows how this can look so different for everyone.
Okay, let's talk about some of those, like the engineer.
Yeah, that one's great. He saw this issue with agricultural waste in one country, right? A big problem.
Mm-hmm.
So he intentionally uses his expertise, his connections back home, and develops a way to turn that waste into, like, a building material.
Wow.
But it wasn't just about the material. He created sustainable jobs. Whole communities benefited. That's intentionality with a specific skill.
Or how about the youth minister? That story is pretty impactful.
Yeah, deeply impacted by a short-term trip.
Yeah.
So he and his church, they intentionally decide to adopt an unreached people group.
And just to clarify for listeners, unreached people group, that generally means a community without like a self-sustaining local Christian presence able to share within their own culture.
Right. And this youth minister, he didn't just, send money. He intentionally sold his stuff, moved his family there, and started a business specifically to build those relationships. That's a huge level of intentionality.
That's a massive commitment. But then you have other examples that feel maybe more accessible, like the young mom.
Totally. Right in the middle of raising kids, she intentionally gets her Bible study group together to learn about sex trafficking.
Just starting with learning.
Exactly. And that small intentional start, it grew. Now they're actively raising funds for prevention, for rescue efforts in Asia. Shows you don't need a giant platform.
Then there's the professor using his students.
Yeah, intentionally involving his grad students.
Wow.
They designed a suspension bridge in a developing nation using local materials.
So not just an academic exercise.
Not at all. It was intentionally designed to boost trade, help the economy long-term in this impoverished community, applying professional skills for that bigger purpose.
And even retirement isn't off limits. The retired pastor who loved woodworking.
He intentionally channeled that passion, that hobby, into raising, what was it, $85,000?
$85,000
Yeah.
just from woodworking.
To train national pastors and leaders over in Eastern Europe. It just shows, even later in life, your passions can be aimed at God's global work.
The stories just keep coming. An elementary school teacher getting her kids involved in rebuilding a school in a war-torn area.
The tech specialist volunteering skills overseas, but also intentionally planting churches as part of his work.
A small group adopting an unreached people group praying, sending short-term teams, and seeing a church planting movement actually start because of it.
It's amazing. And even younger people, the teenager raising microloan funds, selling gift cards.
The college student whose documentary sparked actual ministries for street kids led to adoptions.
Or that pastor in a communist country who intentionally got his whole community focused on blessing their nation, leading to infrastructure, even a government-supported theological school.
It really is incredible, just this huge range of, ordinary people intentionally using their everyday lives, skills, passions, connections in ways that have extraordinary impact. Now, I can imagine someone listening thinking, okay, great stories, inspiring, but I'm not building bridges. I'm not a tech whiz.
Yeah, that's a natural reaction.
Yeah.
How does this apply to me?
Right. And the authors get that. They know we're all different moms, students, mid-career folks, entrepreneurs.
And that's where they offer these sort of prescriptive challenges, really concrete steps anyone can take to start living more intentionally this way.
Okay, let's walk through those. First one is learn to listen.
And this isn't just passive hearing, right?
Yep.
It's active engagement. Reading the Bible specifically, looking for God's mission, his purposes in the world, asking, what's this saying about that?
And paying attention to your own life, too.
Yes. Those recurring thoughts, things that frustrate you, things you're passionate about. They suggest these might be clues, nudges from God about where you could get involved.
Okay, so listen. Then, number 2 is see God's work.
This means looking at the world around us, what's in the news, disasters, migration patterns, all of it, and intentionally asking, where might God be opening doors here?
Opportunities for the church to show up, maybe in new ways.
Exactly. And then evaluating your own stuff, your skills, resources, connections, in light of those global realities, seeing where there might be a match.
Listen, see? Then join God.
Yeah, and they stress simplicity here. Just take a step, even a small one. It's about moving from thinking to doing.
And bringing others along.
Involving others is key. About intentionally growing your awareness of God's global purpose and then actively looking for strategic ways you can contribute.
Makes sense. Next up is plan.
This sounds practical.
Yeah.
Thinking intentionally about how you use your time, even vacation time, could that be used differently?
Thinking about your circles, your relationships, could they be mobilized for something bigger?
Intentionally praying for specific world needs. And importantly, creating some margin, some flexibility in your life.
Why margin?
So you can respond when unexpected opportunities pop up. If you're scheduled to the max, it's hard to jump on something new.
Good point. Okay, listen, see, join, plan, and the last one is ask others.
This highlights purposeful relationships. Intentionally inviting others to serve with you.
Not just assuming people aren't interested.
Right. Asking people about their own desires to serve God. Looking into what your own church is already doing, connecting with existing mission efforts. They really stress that God usually works through community. We do this together.
It really boils down to this core idea, doesn't it? God's inviting all of us with whatever we have. They use that image of the fish and loaves.
Yeah, the little lunch. It's such a powerful picture.
Why is that so resonant here?
Because it reminds us that even if what we bring feels tiny, totally insignificant, when we intentionally offer it to God,
He can multiply it.
He blesses it, multiplies it, uses it in ways we just couldn't predict or engineer on our own.
So wrapping up this deep dive on Live with Intentionality, the main thing for you, our listener, isn't necessarily some huge life-altering change overnight.
No, it's more subtle, more integrated than that.
It's about consciously starting to consider, how could my existing skills, my passions, my relationships, my everyday experiences, how could they connect with God's bigger, global purposes?
The authors really want us to erase those lines we draw, between our spiritual life over here and our real life over there.
Compartmentalizing.
Yeah, breaking down those compartments, seeing everything we are, everything we have as a stewardship, a gift from God that He wants to use for His glory among all people.
This is a powerful shift in perspective. Okay, so here's a final thought for everyone listening to maybe chew on this week. Think about one specific skill you have, or one passion that really gets you excited, or maybe just one important relationship.
Just one thing.
Just one. And ask yourself, what's one small intentional step I could take this week just to explore how that one thing might be used for a purpose beyond my immediate world?
Could be anything, right? A conversation.
Could be a conversation, yeah. Or maybe 5 minutes of research online, a small act of generosity related to it.
Doesn't have to be huge.
No, just one small step, moving towards living with a bit more intentionality.